I have the story of a young boy called Abubakar, who at the age of 10, his parents noticed, the coloration on his skin. And they had thought it's probably just one of the normal skin rash that you find with children who live in the rural area, because probably they often take their bath in the stream, and as young people they play in the bushes and all that. So they sometimes come down with either eczema or ringworm and things, or scabies and things like that. So they thought it was one of those skin infection, and so they began to use the local herbs. But over time it grew worse, and eventually it affected Abubakar's hands and feet. Abubakar began to lose the ability to be able to use his hands well because his fingers began to claw. And they tried so many other traditional healing methods, and it did not work. Eventually, Abubakar found his way to the hospital. That was where I met Abubakar. At this time, Abubakar was about 12 years old. And when he came in and they did a slit skin smear, it was confirmed that Abubakar had leprosy. Now, what this meant was Abubakar was going to stay in the hospital for a long time because it was an MB case, and Abubakar already was having reaction, so he needed to be admitted. What that meant when I spoke to Abubakar, the pain for him was that he was no longer able to go to school. And the other concern was also that, his hands and feet were already getting, deformed. And his friends and some of his family members had attributed it that it's probably, witchcraft that had been inflicted on him. Some said it's because in the future he was going to be an evil man, and so that had to happen to him now to stop him. So there were all kinds of things, and for a young mind like that, he was really confused. He was not sure if what they said, were true about him. He was not really even sure about himself. But he was resigned to fate. The hospital was like an escape route for him because he was away from his family. Only his mother would come once in a while to see him. But he no longer saw his friends. So those friends he grew up with, completely, none of them looked for him. His classmates, again, school was off for him. But when we spoke to Abubakar, his hope was that he was going to get completely cured, and that his clawed fingers was going to strengthen out so that he can return back to normal life. Now, Abubakar got his MDT treatment. His clawed hands, in terms of the ulcers, were also, he received some support, but the clawed fingers were still there. And Abubakar left the hospital. I met with Abubakar not long after that. When he returned back to the hospital, this time around, it was sad because Abubakar had gone from bad to worse. When he left the hospital, he was better. But when he came back, his ulcer had gone really bad. That had led to a long hospital stay for Abubakar. As I speak to you now, Abubakar is at the point where they are considering to amputate his leg. And Abubakar, has also lost, some use of his hands. Now, the future for Abubakar, when we spoke again, was much more bleak this time because his situation had gone worse. He no longer, when I spoke to him and I said, "What's your dream for the future?" It took him a long time to respond. And all Abubakar could say is, whatsoever life would throw at him. So this is just the story of one young man that shows you how a lot of them resign to fate. Because oftentimes when help does not come early, it leads people to a situation in life where they completely give up hope. So that's just one story amongst many of what leprosy does to those that are affected.